Hello and welcome to Boss Unfiltered. My name is Ray Boss, and today we're going to be talking about the different components that make up a real estate contract. Bum 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 bum. Now tell me what you gonna do when there ain't nowhere to run. Yes, obviously, I should have been a member of Bone Thugs-n-Harmony. That was the Crossroads by Bone Thugs-n-Harmony, an absolute 1995 killer of a song, right? That is still relevant today. And guess what? It's relevant to this specific video, okay? Because we're going to be talking about the bones of an offer. Three key things. Number one, I'm going to, maybe sometimes I'll talk about it as an offer, or sometimes I'll be talking about it as a contract. What is that difference? An offer is something that a buyer presents to a seller. Once all the terms have been negotiated and it is all ratified, signed off, it then becomes a contract, all right? The paperwork is still the same, but the terms, once agreed upon, it becomes a contract. I might refer to one or the other. It's still basically the same thing. Next up, depending on where you are in the country, some of these terms might be different. So let's say settlement date. That's a term that we use here in Maryland. Now in California, the date of escrow, that might be how they refer to it, okay? So just keep in mind that there are different terminology for different locations. Lastly, and this is honestly, if you take nothing away from this video, besides the fact that I should have been a member of Bone Thugs-n-Harmony, then you should remember that it is very essential. It is critical to look at all of these different components, and I'm going to be talking about 8 of them, the 8 components that make up the bones of an offer, right? Look at them as a whole. A lot of people would just focus on the purchase price. I'll even have agents call me up and say, Ray, will you accept X price for your listing? I'll say, tell me more, right? I want to know about the other aspects of the offer, before I can even tell you whether it's even something that I would even think about, right? So again, focus on the big picture and all aspects. Don't just get hung up on the price. The first thing that we're going to be talking about is the price. And the price is the king of all of the aspects of the offer. The purchase price is the price that is determined by, what the offer is and then what the seller will agree to. Okay? It's very simple. It's clear cut. We can get into how to determine what the offer price should be, or we can get into what the list price should be. And we've already talked about that in a past video. I'll put the link here. Besides that, it's really simple. It's a dollar amount. All right, so keeping on the theme of money, we have an earnest money deposit. Now, this is essentially where you put your money where your mouth is. It is a set amount that holds you, binds you into the contract. Depending on your location, depending on your price range, this could range from 1% to 5%. It just depends on what is the norm. But I can tell you that the more money you put down as a deposit, the stronger it makes your offer. Understand when you are looking at what a deposit is, understand what your get out cards are, right? What are the different aspects of the contract that allow you to get that money back should you break the contract? If you get out based on a home inspection, what are the number of days that you have to do that in the contingency period? If you get out on an appraisal issue, how does that work? Your realtor should go over all of these things. I can tell you though, if you wake up the day before settlement, decide you don't like the way that the sun looks in the sky, and decide to walk away, you're not going to be getting that back. Another note about earnest money deposit is that money is typically put towards your closing costs. So let's say you have to bring $30,000 to closing, you put $10,000 down, you now have a remaining balance of $20,000. Next up, settlement date. Now, this is something that should be discussed with 3 people. The first one is your realtor, where the 2 of you have a conversation and determine what your priorities are. What settlement date works best for you? The next one is with the lender. Let's say you could buy a house tomorrow. You don't care. But the lender will need to have a different set of protocols, right? The different steps of the approval process to go through. Maybe they can get that done in 21 days. That standard is probably 30 days. Maybe some need 45, depending on what your loan is. The last person that you should have your realtor talk to is the listing agent. Find out what the important, what are the preferences, right, of the seller. And this is especially important if you are in a competitive situation. If you have flexibility and can tie that into whatever the priorities of the seller are, that'll put you in a better position. All right, next up is a big one. They are the inspections. So you have a bunch of different inspections that can be handled, right? The main one is called a home inspection, and that is where you check all of the mechanical, structural features of the home. And that's like your general practitioner, right? If you were to go to a doctor, and they will go there and you will take a look at, the whole house. They'll check the plugs, they'll check the windows, make sure they're functioning, give you an idea of the life expectancy of the HVAC, the roof, things like that. Depending on where you are, your realtor can help give you an idea of how much that will cost just for the home inspection. And then from there, let you know what the contingency periods are. Other examples of different inspections that can be handled: radon, wood-destroying insects like termites and carpenter bees. A well and septic inspection can be very important. Fireplace inspection, mold inspection. All of these different things have different implications to the offer, the contract, right? What are the contingency periods? And how is the contingency or the inspection structured? Is it done with a right to negotiate, or is it done with the right to cancel? The difference being that, dependent on the results of the home inspection, if you are asking for the right to negotiate, then after that inspection, you can go back to the seller and you can say, all right, we found all of these issues. We are not going to ask you to fix all of them. We're understanding people. However, the most important things to us, and maybe some safety issues, right, are X, Y, and Z. We'd like you to fix those prior to settlement, or we'd like a credit to be able to fix those. A right to cancel will typically be where you take it or you leave it. Within the contingency period, you have the right to perform this inspection. And then from there, you can decide whether you stay or leave. And if you do it within the contingency period and you decide to leave, you can get your money back on your deposit. All right, next up we've got taxes. So I'm going to use Maryland as an example because it's where I practice and it's what I know best. In Maryland, we have what are called transfer and recordation taxes. Now, these taxes are typically split equally between the buyer and the seller. It is very important that you note who is paying for what, because it can be written in there, hey, we're going to ask that the seller pay for all of the transfer and recordation. Or if a buyer is competing for a home, maybe they say, hey, listen, we are willing to pay for all of the transfer and recordation taxes, both the seller side and our side, just to give them an upper hand in the competition. So pay attention to the transfer and recordation, or whatever they're called, taxes in your area. All right, next up, we've got a very important one, and that is financing. So the financing, there's a bunch of different ways of doing financing. Probably the most common are cash. Cash is king. Then you've got the different types of loans. You've got conventional, VA, FHA, USDA. So you've got these different types of loan programs. It's important. And listen, if you are the seller, it's important that your listing agent reach out to the buyer's agent. And the buyer's agent should be able to put them in connection with the lender. And the lender should be able to give them a full rundown of the strength of the buyer, of the type of loan program they're doing. This information can provide you a better picture of the strength of the buying power of the buyer. All right, so looped into the financing aspect is the appraisal. Now, if you are doing a loan, very often, almost always, it is imperative that a appraisal be done. The bank will request it, And there can be a contingency or lack thereof alongside that appraisal. So let's say that a home is being sold for $500,000. If it only appraises at $480,000, then the buyer technically needs to come up with that difference. Now, they could have waived their right to an appraisal contingency, and in that case, then they would be on the hook for that automatically. However, if they did not waive that appraisal contingency, then in that case, you would be able to, negotiate. Maybe the seller drops the price a little bit, you make up the difference from there. We have a 50-50 split, something like that. All right, so that's it for today. I know some of these things were a little bit tedious. However, I think it's very important that you understand the different aspects of a contract, so that way you can tweak a little bit here, tweak a little bit there, give you the best opportunity to get an offer accepted that works out for all parties. If you like this video, if you find it helpful, if you found it educational and would like more of it, I would be so appreciative if you would like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share it as well. Have a great day. Catch you on the flip side.